Right, so we've established Kushner is involved, deeply involved, and seemingly operating under a different set of rules than anyone else doing this sort of thing. The whole deal guy framing is sticking in my craw, honestly. It's not like negotiating a commercial lease. These are people's lives. But let's unpack the actual deal he seems to be pushing, turning Gaza into a beachfront property. It started as some offhand remark at Harvard, which should tell you everything. The idea is, well, it's aggressively simplistic. Redevelop Gaza, make it nice, problem solved. The unspoken part, naturally, is who gets to benefit from this redevelopment and who has to move so it can happen. Trump openly mused about forced evictions. Kushner floated the concept first, predictably. It's like someone looked at a disaster zone and thought prime real estate opportunity. It's not even a new idea. People have talked about rebuilding Gaza for decades. The difference here is that Kushner isn't talking about aid or long-term investment in existing infrastructure. He's talking about flipping the entire territory, like it's a distressed asset needing a facelift. And who profits from that flip? Affinity Partners, his investment firm, which already has significant holdings with Saudi and Qatari funds. It's less foreign policy and more, a really blatant land grab disguised as peacemaking. The genius, if you can call it that, is the framing. He's selling a vision of economic transformation, a glittering resort instead of rubble. It conveniently sidesteps all the incredibly complex political realities and humanitarian concerns. And because Trump has given Israel essentially free rein, Arab leaders are willing to talk to Kushner, even meet with Hamas directly, knowing they can leverage that access for their own interests. The whole thing feels less like diplomacy and more like a particularly elaborate hostile takeover, but with slightly better PR. It's depressing, frankly. So, we've established Kushner as operating like a particularly enthusiastic vulture capitalist in a region actively experiencing, well, everything. The latest bit of theater involves this idea, floated repeatedly by Trump but originating with Kushner, to just redevelop Gaza, like turn it into a beachfront property, which is, if you step back for even a second, profoundly unsettling. It's not like they're talking about building affordable housing. This isn't some post-conflict Marshall Plan fantasy. It's envisioning luxury resorts where people are currently sheltering in UN schools. And Trump didn't just idly muse about this while golfing. He explicitly suggested forcibly evicting Palestinians to make way for the development. It's easy to dismiss that as Trump being Trump, saying outrageous things. But Kushner pushed the same idea, and that's the bit that sticks in my craw. The implication isn't subtle. Clear out the existing population, sell some condos, profit. It's a hostile takeover of land using a humanitarian crisis as leverage. Aaron David Miller had it nailed when he described meeting with Kushner during the first term. Apparently, Kushner said, and I quote, "Don't talk to me about history." He wasn't interested in context, nuance, or frankly, the actual people living there. Just doing things differently. This isn't a failure of diplomacy, it's an absence graz of it. It's treating a complex geopolitical situation like a distressed asset and applying the same techniques you'd use to flip a building in Manhattan. The whole thing is predicated on the idea that Trump's unwavering support for Israel creates enough leverage to make this acceptable to everyone involved, presumably. But what does acceptable even mean when it requires displacing hundreds of thousands of people? It feels less like a peace process and more like a particularly well-funded real estate scheme with geopolitical implications. And the fact that everyone seems perfectly okay with treating human lives as externalities is just exhausting. Okay, so we've established Jared Kushner is involved, deeply involved, and seemingly operating under a different set of rules than anyone else in recent memory. The conflict of interest isn't even subtext at this point. It's the entire wallpaper pattern of the situation. Billions flowing, potential redevelopments promised, and a whole lot riding on whether people just stay put or don't. But let's be real about what's actually powering this latest burst of activity. It isn't Kushner's 25 books. Let's not pretend that was anything other than performative. It's Trump. Everything orbits around him, doesn't it? The access, the credibility, whatever leverage they're claiming to have acquired, it all stems from the fact that Trump has just relentlessly backed Israel, like a devoted stage parent. It's genuinely bizarre when you think about it. He provides unwavering support, 100%, as one official put it, and suddenly everyone is willing to cooperate with Kushner and Witkoff because they assume Trump won't ask Netanyahu to do anything he doesn't want to. It's like negotiating a car deal where one side has already agreed to buy the lemon, regardless of the price tag. This isn't diplomacy as anyone understands it. It's leverage built on a single person's enthusiasm, and that makes everything incredibly fragile. The whole thing rests on Trump continuing to be Trump, and on Netanyahu believing he can get away with whatever he wants while still enjoying Trump's backing. It feels less like a strategy, and more like a house of cards constructed entirely out of ego and real estate ambitions. Honestly, it's exhausting watching people treat geopolitics like an open-plan development project. The level of unsentimentality is almost impressive, in a deeply depressing way. So, we've established this whole thing operates on a particularly flimsy foundation of, well, Trump being loudly pro-Israel. It's less policy, more performance art that accidentally unlocks some functionality. The interesting part isn't that he supports Israel. Politicians do performative gestures all the time. It's how consistently, aggressively he does it. Apparently, everyone involved feels secure enough to play ball knowing Trump has their back, even if ball is a deeply compromised negotiation. This ceasefire, as much as anyone's touting victory, is basically mutual benefit disguised as peace. Israel gets the security assurances they were demanding, which, let's be real, were always going to be more important than any long-term solution. Arab states get the potential for economic opportunities, a chance to show leadership, and maybe a bit of access. And then there's Kushner. Affinity Partners is sitting pretty. It's not exactly subtle. The entire region could become a portfolio opportunity, and he's positioned himself perfectly to capitalize on it. Honestly, the truly unsettling thought, and I hesitate even saying this because it feels too cynical even for me, is whether the war needed to run as long as it did. Because a destroyed Gaza presents an enormous redevelopment contract, a blank slate. And who better than a deal guy with billions in investment capital to swoop in and build? It's like waiting for a house to burn down so you can buy the land cheap. I'm not saying that was deliberate, obviously, but it's difficult to shake the feeling that suffering is being treated as a market correction, an opportunity for profit disguised as humanitarian aid. The whole thing is just deeply disturbing, and predictably, nobody seems surprised anymore. It's just business, apparently. A really bad business. Right, so we've established Kushner's enthusiasm for deal-making in a region actively experiencing a humanitarian crisis. And that his father has, shall we say, history with Netanyahu. It's all very neat, isn't it? Like someone took a family business and just plopped it down into international diplomacy. You can almost smell the LLC forming. The bit about Trump giving him unlimited authority is also telling. Usually that means nobody else wants to touch something with a 10-foot pole. Or it means you're running point on something where plausible deniability is paramount. Either way, not exactly a sign of careful statecraft. It's more like letting your kid run the lemonade stand, except the lemonade stand involves hostage negotiations and billions in potential real estate ventures. And then there's the mature people, apologizing on behalf of another country. Like this is some sort of awkward corporate merger instead of sovereign nations. It highlights how everything gets flattened when you view it through a purely transactional lens. Feelings, history, decades of conflict? Irrelevant. Get the apology written, secure the leverage. The real kicker, though, isn't even the blatant conflicts of interest, though those are pretty bad. It's that nobody is pretending anymore. Caroline Leavitt calling it noble to potentially profit off a ceasefire feels less like spin and more like an admission, like they're daring you to care. It all circles back, doesn't it? The idea of redeveloping Gaza as beachfront property wasn't some offhand comment. It was the goal all along. A disaster waiting to happen, packaged as an opportunity. It's just a very depressing cycle. Suffering creates instability. Instability lowers prices. Lowered prices create investment opportunities. And then someone like Kushner swoops in to fix things and make a killing while doing so. The whole thing is exhausting, honestly. It's not even particularly clever, it's just predictably awful. Okay, so last time we were talking about how this whole Gaza thing feels less like diplomacy and more like a fire sale. And honestly, that's probably giving it too much credit. It's not even a particularly good fire sale, it's just blatant. The core of it isn't some grand strategy for peace or humanitarian aid or any of that stuff they feed you on the news. It's about profit, plain and simple. Late-stage capitalism just sort of consumes everything, right? Even tragedies become investment portfolios. And what's really remarkable is how little anyone seems to care, or, more accurately, how little anyone can do about it. There's all this talk about conflicts of interest with Kushner running around, brokering deals while simultaneously managing billions tied up in the region. Matt Duss called it open corruption, and yeah, that tracks. But will anything happen? Will there be investigations? Accountability? Please. It's like expecting a shark to feel bad for swimming in the ocean. The White House spokesperson actually had the gall to say Kushner is widely respected and donating his time to secure world peace. That's something. The sheer audacity of it all. But that's how power works, isn't it? You create a narrative, you surround yourself with people who will reinforce it, and you just steamroll over anyone who points out the obvious grift. He's a deal guy, they say. Like turning human suffering into real estate opportunities requires a specific skill set that only someone from New York can possess. It's just pathetic. And ultimately, what are you even going to do about it? Complain on Twitter? Write strongly worded letters? The system is designed to absorb outrage like a sponge. So, yeah, the ceasefire happened. Good for them, but don't mistake that for progress. Don't expect justice. It is what it is.